I start off tonight, and I know Vinny and I were just talking about this before we went live tonight, but I want to shed some light tonight on an album that was eventually released in 2004 by the founder of the group, and none other than in 2011 they actually released the actual recordings of it. We're talking about the Beach Boys' "SMiLE" from 1967. And this, full backstory for those who are just, and I'm gonna let Vinny chime in a second because this is kind of his forte as well.
Yes.
Following the very critically acclaimed or somewhat critically acclaimed response of Pet Sounds, and after Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles, Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, who is a phenomenal musician, he's a genius. He decided to start making an album called SMiLE, which would have been the follow-up to Pet Sounds, but it got delayed and it got shelved and it was cost a lot of money. And this is where Vinny's side of the conversation comes in a second. But basically, Brian Wilson didn't release it and didn't release a release of it until 2004, and the Beach Boys, like publishing, I'm not sure, I think the record company of Capitol, released it in 2011, and it's like 5 hours of material. It's the sessions where we got the song "Good Vibrations" from. But I'm very curious to see what Vinny has to say about this. So Vinny, maybe you can shed some light on this. So Vinny, talk to me. "SMiLE" from the Beach Boys. What do you got?
Yes, I know the recording process was very, very, very fraught with conflict and everything. The most important thing people know is it was shelved. It was shelved for a long time. There was a lot of issues that came up. They were supposed to be released before Sgt. Pepper. The thing is, when Sgt. Pepper was released, they kind of had it just been released before Sgt. Pepper, the music itself, the whole genre would have been changed irrevocably. I think SMiLE would have been the greatest album ever, followed by Sgt. Pepper, in all honesty. And it took a while for Brian Wilson to ever want to revisit the recordings. Thankfully, he did it on a tour in 2003. He played the whole album in full, as he intended to do. He recorded the album as he did it. So he did a tour in 2003 where he would do what he considered the final track listing for SMiLE, the whole album. In 2004, he released a studio version of SMiLE, and I must say, even without Carl and Dennis, it's really, really worth your money to listen to.
Yeah,
just absolutely. Take our money.
It's funny because I was listening. It's actually so funny that I wanted to do this topic tonight, and I wanted to get Vinny involved tonight because I was listening to this on random. I was like, I haven't really listened to the Beach Boys in a while. I'm looking for a little bit of psychedelic type of rock and whatnot. And I said, all right, let me give this a shot and whatnot. And I listened to the recordings, and as Vinny said, it's 100% true. The recordings, even without Dennis or Carl Wilson, are brilliantly done. And not only that, but like the album itself is like what, 35, 40 minutes maybe. And then the actual bonus material of all the different session outtakes of all the different songs is like 5 hours long. I mean, is it possible? Can you shed some light on that at all? Like, have you listened to all that?
I know there was a lot of recordings. That is all these surviving recordings on this box set. And I think I know it was a big box set. I never owned the box set, but it was not small. It was like 5. It was on CD. There was a lot. There was records. And a lot of like promotional stuff in the box set too, like with stuff that would have been put out in stores had it been released. This was, as you can tell, that poster on the Wikipedia thing, that would have been the promotional poster when they released the album with the little store up more. Thankfully, Good Vibrations was released. Heroes and Villains, another great song off the album. They actually did use a lot of the SMiLE recordings after that period when Brian Wilson was an active contributor, like on Surf's Up, that song, SMiLE outtake.
Yep.
Of 2020, they have what's that one? Our Prayer Cabinescence, SMiLE outtake. One thing though, here's one they absolutely should have put on an album. Their version of Charlton's The Father to the Man absolutely should have been put on a Beach Boys album. I'm amazed it didn't go released until Brian Wilson recorded his version of Smile. And the Beach Boys version was released in 2011, which, when it comes to that song, that's insane it took that long.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a friendly reminder for everyone. This is not like our Surfing USA, Bob Moran type of Beach Boys. This is when the Beach Boys were actually being musical geniuses as they were back in the mid to late 60s. And it
was revolutionary stuff.
Absolutely. It was beyond. I mean, people, the fact that people can write a song on a computer in like 5 minutes, that is nothing compared to the complex recording process of Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys back then, especially.
Yeah. They were throwing the rule book out. They were using full orchestras. They were using instruments that people today wouldn't dare even attempt to try to learn.
Yeah, I mean, and on Pet Sounds alone, I mean, I know we're talking about SMiLE, but Pet Sounds, there's a lot of other stuff on there. Like there was the bottom of a water bottle they used. There was sleigh bells there was Brian Wilson was trying to record music that was very much of a progressing towards a whole new sound of music, and he was trying to do that. And with what do you call it? With Pet Sounds, he achieved it as a release, critically and whatnot, and it became one of the best albums of all time. Of course, This one I feel like would have been, had it been actually released back in 67 or
had they been able to work everything out, it absolutely would have probably been the number one album. Sgt. Pepper would have been number 2. And not only that, this album was called A Teenage Symphony to God. That was what Brian Wilson's intent was. It really was that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there's a really great YouTuber. If you want to look up a really like psychedelic stuff of the Beach Boys, there's a YouTuber by the name of Jeffrey Stillwell. And Jeffrey Stillwell on YouTube, he has talked about SMiLE, and one of the quotes in one of his videos was that someone said that Brian Wilson said, "I want one day people will pray to songs I make." That's pretty wild stuff if you think about it. I mean, the fact that, and the one was a 1 minute track called "Our Prayer." You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, the first song, I love that. With the harmonies, oh boy.
If you have not heard, and like you want to talk about perfecting music or just by using your voice, that's a track I highly cannot emphasize enough recommend check out.
Yeah,
one of the best that I've ever, one of the best vocal recordings I think out there ever. So I know Bill's kind of quiet. Bill, have you heard of this stuff at all? Have you heard of the SMiLE album at all?
I think I've maybe heard of it, but I don't really know much about it. So
okay, and that's why that's why you're here now. We have other artists we're going to talk about too that have other albums and stuff too. But yeah,
because I actually got a few. I actually just thought of one right now.
Oh, good. Okay, so after SMiLE, we'll go to yours.
Okay, so good.
So yeah, but yeah. Bottom line, I mean, any other comments for SMiLE? Do you want to shed any other light on it or no?
I think there's if you read up into it enough, there's a lot of stuff known about SMiLE already. SMiLE, the album after Pet Sounds, was like a attempt to try to help create. It was the album after Pet Sounds, SMiLE. The one that actually had Good Vibrations that was released. It was an attempt to try to cobble together SMiLE after it wasn't able to be finished. Listen to the actual SMiLE sessions or Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE. I think SMiLE's a good album, but it's not really SMiLE.
Yeah, because I mean, we could talk about this all day, but SMiLE, I personally, I've listened to it. Vinny's listened to it, and if you have not heard yes, it is a little trippy. Yes, it's a little out there, but if you really want to get into really great music that is very much, that almost basically wasn't released for like 30, 40 years, check out this one. Highly personally recommended from us. Yes, but yeah, that's SMiLE.